The rain hammered against the wooden door with such fury that Zachary Pemberton wondered if the storm meant to tear his cottage apart. But he had stopped caring about storms or anything else the day he buried his wife 3 winters ago. He sat in his chair by the cold hearth, staring at nothing, the way he spent most evenings now, listening to the wind howl through the valley like a living thing bent on destruction. When the knocking came, so faint beneath the thunder that he almost missed it, his first instinct was to ignore it entirely because no one came to his door anymore, not since he had made it clear he wanted to be left alone with his grief. The knocking came again, more insistent this time, and Zachary felt irritation flare in his chest. He pushed himself up from the chair with a grunt, his joints protesting the movement. At 42, he felt older than his years, worn down by loss and isolation. He had been a different man once, a blacksmith with strong arms and a ready smile, a husband who had loved deeply and been loved in return. Now he was just a hermit who tended a small garden and fixed the occasional tool for the villagers who still remembered him, though they rarely visited. He yanked open the door, ready to send whoever it was away with sharp words, but the sight that greeted him stole the breath from his lungs. An orc woman stood on his threshold, soaked to the bone, her green skin glistening in the lightning that cracked across the sky. She was tall, nearly as tall as he was, with broad shoulders and muscular arms that spoke of strength and hard living. Her dark hair hung in wet ropes around her face, and her small tusks jutted up from her lower jaw, white against her rain-drenched features. But it was her eyes that stopped him, dark amber eyes filled with such desperate exhaustion that he forgot for a moment every story he had ever heard about orcs being monsters. "Please," she said, her voice rough and strained. "I need shelter. Just for the night. I will be gone by morning." Zachary should have slammed the door. Every instinct told him to do exactly that. Orcs were dangerous, everyone knew that. They raided human settlements, burned crops, took what they wanted. The war between their peoples had been going on for generations, simmering hatred that occasionally boiled over into violence. But the woman before him did not look like a raider. She looked like someone who had been running for a very long time and had finally run out of places to go. "You are hurt," he heard himself say, noticing the way she held her left arm against her body, the dark stain on her rough spun tunic that was not just rainwater. "It is nothing," she said, but even as she spoke, she swayed on her feet. Zachary made a decision he knew he would probably regret. He stepped back and gestured for her to come inside. She hesitated, clearly surprised by the invitation, then stumbled across the threshold. He closed the door behind her, shutting out the storm, and suddenly his small cottage felt much smaller with her presence filling it. "Sit," he said, pointing to the chair by the hearth. He moved to light the fire, his hands working automatically while his mind tried to catch up with what he had just done. An orc in his home. If anyone from the village found out, they would think he had lost his mind. She sank into the chair with a small sound of relief, and he busied himself with building up the flames. The firelight danced across her features, highlighting the sharp angles of her face, the weariness etched into every line. Up close, he could see she was younger than he had first thought, perhaps in her mid-20s, though it was hard to tell with orcs. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I did not think you would let me in." "I am not sure why I did," Zachary admitted. He fetched a cloth and handed it to her. "Dry yourself. I will see to that wound." She accepted the cloth but made no move to remove her tunic. He realized she was afraid, or at least deeply uncertain. He sighed and went to his small collection of medical supplies, remnants from when his wife had been the one everyone came to for healing. Sarah had been good with herbs and poultices, patient and gentle. He was neither of those things, but he remembered enough. "What is your name?" he asked as he returned with bandages and a jar of salve. "Grusha," she said. "Grusha of the Iron Ridge clan, or I was, until they cast me out." "Cast out for what?" She met his eyes, and he saw pride warring with shame. "For refusing to kill a human child during a raid. I let the girl run and hid her from the others. When my clan found out, they said I had dishonored them. They gave me a choice, leave or die, so I left." Zachary absorbed this information in silence. He gestured to her arm. "Let me see it." Grusha hesitated, then slowly pulled her tunic up enough to reveal the wound. It was a deep gash along her forearm, already showing signs of infection. Someone had tried to bandage it, but the cloth was filthy and soaked through. "This needs to be cleaned properly," Zachary said. He fetched water and clean cloths, then set to work. Grusha hissed in pain as he washed away the dried blood and dirt, but she did not pull away. Her stoicism impressed him despite himself. "How long have you been wandering?" he asked as he worked. 6 days, maybe 7. I lost count." She paused, then added, "I tried to find shelter in 2 other places. They chased me off with weapons. One man shot an arrow at me. That is how I got this wound." The casual way she said it made Zachary's stomach turn. He applied the salve with more care than he intended, then wrapped her arm in clean bandages. When he finished, he stepped back and looked at her properly for the first time. Even exhausted and injured, there was something compelling about her, a strength that had not been broken despite everything she had endured. "You can sleep by the fire," he said gruffly. "There are blankets in the chest. I will be in the other room. Do not take anything that is not yours and be gone by dawn." "I will," Grusha promised. "Thank you, Zachary Pemberton." He paused, startled. "How do you know my name?" "I heard it in the village below. I asked who lived up here alone, far from others. They said you were a widower who wanted nothing to do with anyone." Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "They said you were mean and bitter. I thought perhaps you would understand what it is like to be alone." Zachary felt something crack inside his chest, some brittle piece of the armor he had built around himself. He did not respond, just turned and walked to his bedroom, closing the door firmly behind him. He stood there in the darkness, listening to the storm outside and the soft sounds of Grusha settling by the fire, and wondered what he had gotten himself into. Sleep did not come easily. He lay awake for hours, alert for any sign of danger, but all he heard was the rain and the occasional crackle of the fire. When he finally drifted off, his dreams were troubled, full of memories of Sarah and strange images of amber eyes in a green face. He woke before dawn, as was his habit, and emerged from his room expecting to find the cottage empty. Instead, Grusha was still there, kneeling by the hearth, carefully tending the fire. She looked up when he appeared, and he saw uncertainty in her expression. "The storm has not stopped," she said simply, "but I will go if you wish it." Zachary looked at the window, where rain still streaked down in sheets. He thought about sending her out into that, injured and alone with nowhere to go. He thought about how that would sit on his conscience, already heavy with things he could not change. "Stay until the storm passes," he heard himself say, "but only until then." Relief flashed across her features. "Thank you, I will not be trouble." She kept her word. While Zachary went about his morning routine, Grusha remained by the fire, quiet and still. He made porridge for breakfast, then found himself making 2 bowls instead of 1. He set hers on the small table and retreated to his chair, and they ate in silence. The storm continued throughout the day, showing no signs of letting up. Zachary tried to go about his usual activities, but he was acutely aware of Grusha's presence. She watched him with those amber eyes, not hostile but deeply curious, as if she was trying to figure out what manner of human would shelter an orc. By afternoon, the silence had become oppressive. Zachary was mending a harness when Grusha finally spoke. "Why do you live alone out here?" He did not look up from his work. "That is none of your concern. The villagers said your wife died. I am sorry for that." The words were simple, but there was genuine compassion in them. Zachary's hand stilled on the leather. 3 years ago, fever took her. I could not save her for all my trying. "It is hard to lose someone you love," Grusha said quietly. "I understand that pain." Despite himself, Zachary glanced at her. "You lost someone, my brother. He was killed in a battle with humans 5 years ago. He was all the family I had left." She paused, her expression distant. "I think that was when I started to question the way of things. My brother died hating humans, and humans killed him hating orcs, and for what? A piece of land. Old grudges no one even remembers the start of." Zachary set down the harness. "Your clan cast you out for showing mercy. My people would have praised someone for killing an orc child. I do not know what that says about either of us." "It says we are both capable of senseless cruelty," Grusha said, "and perhaps also capable of something better if we choose it." The conversation unsettled him, stirring thoughts he had buried along with Sarah. He returned to his work, but the words lingered in his mind. When evening came, he made stew from dried meat and vegetables, and again found himself preparing enough for 2. They ate together, and this time the silence felt less awkward, more like the comfortable quiet of 2 people who did not need to fill every moment with words. The storm raged on through the night and into the next day. Zachary told himself he would send Grusha away as soon as it cleared, but some part of him was not in a hurry for that to happen. He had not realized how oppressive the loneliness had become until he had someone else in the cottage, even someone as unlikely as an orc woman. On the 3rd day, the rain finally stopped. Zachary woke to silence and knew that his time for excuses had run out. He found Grusha already awake, standing at the window, looking out at the dripping world. "The storm has passed," she said without turning around. "It has. Then I will go." She gathered her few belongings, her movements careful around her injured arm. The bandage needed changing, Zachary noticed, but he did not offer. Better to let her leave now before this strange interlude became something more complicated. Grusha walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the latch. "Thank you, Zachary Pemberton. You showed me kindness when you did not have to. I will not forget it." "Where will you go?" The question escaped before he could stop it. She turned to look at him, and he saw the truth in her eyes before she spoke. "I do not know. Away from here, away from places where I am known. Perhaps I will find somewhere I can live in peace." "There is nowhere like that," Zachary said bluntly. "Not for an orc alone, you know this." "Then I will keep moving until I cannot move any more." Her voice was steady, but he heard the exhaustion beneath it, the bone-deep weariness of someone who had run out of hope. Zachary felt something shift inside him, some decision made before his mind had fully caught up with it. "Or you could stay." Grusha stared at him. "What? Stay here? Work for your keep. I have more work than I can manage alone, and you are strong enough to help once that arm heals." The words tumbled out, and even as he spoke them, he could not quite believe he was saying them. "It is better than wandering until you collapse or someone kills you. You would let me stay. An orc. I would let you stay because you need a place to be and I have space." He met her eyes. "But understand this. If you steal from me or bring trouble to my door, I will not hesitate to defend myself. I would expect nothing less." Grusha's expression was difficult to read. "But the villagers will talk. They will not like you harboring an orc." "The villagers already think I am half mad. Let them talk." Zachary gestured around the cottage. "This is my land, bought with my own coin. I will shelter who I please." For the first time since he had met her, Grusha smiled, a real smile that softened her features and made her look younger. "Then I accept. Thank you." Over the following days, they fell into an unexpected rhythm. Grusha proved herself more than capable despite her injury. She helped him repair the fence that had been sagging for months, chopped firewood with an efficiency that impressed him, and turned out to be surprisingly good at tending the small garden. She worked without complaint, rising early and staying busy until dusk. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and gradually they began to talk. Grusha told him about life in an orc clan, the harsh rules and constant testing, the emphasis on strength and combat prowess. She spoke of the beauty of the Iron Ridge Mountains, the songs her people sang, and the complicated politics between different clans. In return, Zachary found himself sharing memories of his life with Sarah, stories he had locked away because they hurt too much to remember. "She would have liked you," he said one night, surprised by the realization even as he spoke it. Sarah was always the one who saw the best in people, who believed in second chances. "What was she like?" Grusha asked. Zachary smiled, a rare expression these days. "Kind, patient. Stubborn as a mule when she set her mind to something. She was small, barely came up to my shoulder, but she had a will of iron. She is the one who convinced me to move out here, away from the noise of town. She loved the quiet, the way you could hear birds in the morning and see all the stars at night. You must have loved her very much." "I did. I still do." He stared into the fire. "When she died, I thought the world had ended. I wanted it to end. For a long time, I just went through the motions of living without actually being alive." Grusha was quiet for a moment. "And now?" Zachary considered the question. "Now I am not sure, but I think maybe I am starting to remember what it feels like to have a reason to get up in the morning." As the weeks passed, Zachary found himself looking forward to Grusha's company in ways that both surprised and unsettled him. She had a dry sense of humor that caught him off guard, and an intelligence that he had not expected. She was curious about everything, asking questions about human customs and listening to his answers with genuine interest. When he showed her his old blacksmithing tools, her eyes lit up with fascination. "Could you teach me?" she asked, running her fingers over the anvil with reverence. "You want to learn blacksmithing? In my clan, only the males were allowed to work metal. I always wanted to try, but it was forbidden." She looked at him with hope in her amber eyes. "I understand if you do not want to share your craft." Zachary thought about it. He had not worked the forge since Sarah's death, had not felt the desire to create anything. But the idea of teaching Grusha stirred something in him, some long, dormant part of himself that remembered the satisfaction of shaping metal, of making something useful and beautiful. "We will start tomorrow," he said. Teaching Grusha to work metal became the highlight of his days. She was a quick learner, strong and coordinated, and she approached each lesson with an enthusiasm that was infectious. He found himself smiling more, laughing at her occasional frustrated outbursts when a piece did not come out right, feeling pride when she successfully completed a project. One afternoon, as they worked side by side at the forge, Zachary realized he was happy. The thought struck him like a physical blow, and he nearly dropped the tongs he was holding. He had not been happy in 3 years, had not thought he would ever feel that way again. And yet here he was, covered in soot and sweat, teaching an orc woman how to hammer out a horseshoe, and he was genuinely, truly happy. Grusha noticed his distraction. "Is something wrong?" "No," he said, and meant it. "Nothing is wrong." But the realization brought complications. Zachary began to notice things about Grusha that had nothing to do with her being a capable worker or good company. The way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, the grace in her movements despite her size, the sound of her laugh, rare but genuine when it came. He found himself watching her when he thought she was not looking, studying the curve of her jaw and the way the firelight played across her green skin. This was dangerous territory, and he knew it. Whatever he was feeling, it could not lead anywhere good. Humans and orcs did not form attachments, did not build lives together. The very idea was absurd, a betrayal of everything both their peoples believed. And yet the feelings grew stronger with each passing day, an undercurrent to everything they did together. He was not the only one affected. He caught Grusha looking at him sometimes with an expression he could not quite read, something soft and uncertain. She had started to touch him more often, casual contact like a hand on his shoulder or fingers brushing his as they worked. Each touch sent electricity through him, made him acutely aware of her presence. The situation came to a head on a warm evening in late spring. They had been working in the garden, planting seeds for the summer crops. Grusha had dirt on her face and a smile on her lips, and Zachary had been struck by how beautiful she looked, earthy and alive and completely at ease. Without thinking, he had reached out and brushed the dirt from her cheek. The moment his fingers touched her skin, everything changed. Grusha went very still, her eyes locked on his, and he saw his own confusion and desire reflected back at him. They stood frozen like that, inches apart, the air between them charged with possibility. "Zachary," she whispered, and there was a question in the way she said his name. He should have stepped back, should have made some joke to break the tension. Instead, he found himself moving closer, drawn by something he could not name and did not want to fight. Grusha did not retreat. Her breath came faster, and he could see her pulse jumping in her throat. Then the sound of hoofbeats shattered the moment. They sprang apart just as 3 riders came into view, cresting the hill that led to Zachary's cottage. He recognized them immediately. Men from the village, led by Thomas Cooper, a hard man with a deep hatred of orcs. "Pemberton." Thomas called out, reining in his horse. His eyes found Grusha and narrowed with disgust. "So the rumors are true. You are harboring an orc." Zachary stepped forward, putting himself between Grusha and the riders. "This is my property, Cooper. What I do here is my business." "It becomes our business when you bring a monster into our midst." Thomas spat on the ground. "Do you have any idea how dangerous this is? She could be a spy or worse. She is neither. She is a woman who needed help, and I gave it. That is all." One of the other men, younger and more hot-headed than Thomas, pointed at Grusha. "That thing needs to be driven off or killed. Orcs killed my cousin last summer. I am not going to stand by while one of them lives in comfort on our doorstep." "Then do not stand," Zachary said coldly. "Turn your horse around and ride away. This does not concern you." "You have gone soft in the head, old man," the young man sneered. "Maybe we should what?" Zachary's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. "Come onto my land and threaten me. Try to harm someone under my protection." "I may have been away from the world for a while, Cooper, but I have not forgotten how to fight. And I promise you, if you try anything, you will regret it." Thomas studied him for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he shook his head. "You are making a mistake, Pemberton. A bad one. Do not come crying to the village when she stabs you in your sleep." "I will keep that in mind." The riders left, but the threat hung in the air long after they disappeared. Grusha had been silent throughout the confrontation, but now she turned to Zachary with worry etched across her features. "They will cause trouble," she said. "I should go. I do not want to bring danger to you." "You are not going anywhere," Zachary said firmly. "I meant what I told Cooper. You are under my protection, and I do not back down from bullies." "But no." He took her hands in his, a gesture that felt both natural and terrifying. "Grusha, I do not care what they think. I do not care about their prejudices or their hatred. You belong here, with me." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning that went beyond simple shelter. Grusha's eyes widened, and he saw hope and fear warring in their amber depths. "You mean that?" she asked quietly. Zachary realized he was standing at a crossroads, one that would define the rest of his life. He could pull back now, pretend the words meant nothing more than a promise of continued hospitality. Or he could step forward into unknown territory, acknowledge what had been growing between them for weeks. He stepped forward. "I mean it," he said. "I do not know when it happened, or how, but somewhere along the way, you stopped being a stranger I sheltered from the storm. You became someone I look forward to seeing every morning, someone whose smile makes my day better. Someone I care about deeply in a way I thought I would never care about anyone again." Grusha's breath caught. "I am an orc. You are human. Our peoples have been wrong about a lot of things," Zachary interrupted. "Maybe they are wrong about this too. Or maybe we can prove them wrong." He squeezed her hands gently. "I do not have all the answers, Grusha. I just know that I do not want you to leave. I want you to stay, not as a worker or a guest, but as someone who belongs here, as someone who belongs with me." For a moment she said nothing, and Zachary felt fear claw at his chest. Then Grusha smiled, a brilliant expression that transformed her entire face and pulled him into an embrace. He wrapped his arms around her, feeling her strength and warmth, and knew he had made the right choice. "I want to stay," she whispered against his shoulder. "I have wanted to for so long, but I was afraid you did not feel the same way, afraid I was reading too much into every look and touch." Zachary pulled back just enough to see her face. "You were not. I have been falling for you for weeks, and it terrified me. I thought I had buried my heart with Sarah, that I would never feel this way again. But you made me feel alive again, Grusha. You made me want to live again, not just exist." She reached up and cupped his face with her hand, her touch gentle despite her strength. "Your Sarah must have been an extraordinary woman to inspire such love. I hope I can be worthy of what you are offering me." "You already are," Zachary said, and then he kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, tentative and sweet, but it sent heat racing through his veins. Grusha kissed him back with equal tenderness, her tusks brushing against his face in a way that was strange and wonderful and perfectly right. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard, and Zachary felt dizzy with emotion. "We will face challenges," Grusha said, her forehead resting against his. "Your people will not accept this. Mine either if they ever learn of it." "Then we will face them together," Zachary replied. "I have spent 3 years hiding from the world, from life, from anything that might hurt me. I am done hiding. If the world has a problem with us being together, the world can go hang." Grusha laughed, the sound full of joy and relief. "You are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both." He grinned at her. "But I have never felt more certain of anything in my life." That night, they sat by the fire as they had done so many times before, but everything had changed. Grusha sat beside him instead of across from him, their hands intertwined, and they talked about the future with a cautious optimism. They made no grand plans, understanding that they would have to take things one day at a time, but the possibility of a life together was enough. The trouble Zachary had anticipated arrived a week later. He was working in the forge when he heard Grusha's warning shout. He rushed outside to find a group of men from the village, nearly a dozen strong, armed with clubs and crude weapons. Thomas Cooper stood at their head, his face twisted with righteous anger. "We gave you a chance to get rid of the orc yourself, Pemberton," Thomas said. "But you have made your choice clear. Now we will make ours. Hand her over or we will take her by force." Zachary positioned himself in front of Grusha, his hammer still in his hand from the forge. "You will do no such thing. Leave my property now or I will defend it." 1 man against 12. Thomas shook his head. You always were stubborn, but this is suicide. Then I will die protecting what is mine. Zachary's voice was steady, despite the fear coursing through him. He had been a soldier before he became a blacksmith, had fought in border skirmishes, but that had been years ago. He was outnumbered and outmatched, but he would not back down. Zachary, please, Grusha said behind him. Do not do this. I will go with them if it means you are safe. No. He did not take his eyes off the mob. I told you I would protect you, and I meant it. Thomas raised his hand, about to signal the attack, when a voice cut through the tension like a knife. That is far enough, Cooper. Everyone turned to see a rider approaching, a woman on a gray horse. Zachary recognized her immediately. Olivia Sterling, the magistrate's daughter and one of the few people in the region with real authority. She was a formidable woman in her 50s, known for her sharp mind and unwillingness to tolerate nonsense. Miss Sterling, Thomas said, clearly thrown by her appearance. This does not concern you. On the contrary, it concerns me very much. Olivia dismounted and walked forward with confidence. You are about to commit violence on a man's private property against his explicit wishes. That is assault, Cooper, and I will not stand for it in my father's jurisdiction. But the orc has broken no laws that I am aware of. Has she stolen from anyone, attacked anyone? No. Olivia looked around at the assembled men. Then what exactly is your complaint? That Pemberton here has shown hospitality to someone in need. Last I checked, that was considered a virtue, not a crime. One of the younger men spoke up. But she is an orc. They are monsters. She is a person, Olivia corrected sharply. And unless you can prove she has done something wrong, you have no right to harm her. Now, I suggest you all go home before I am forced to report this to my father. I do not think any of you want to explain to the magistrate why you formed an armed mob. The men looked at each other uncertainly. Thomas glared at Olivia, but even he knew better than to directly challenge the magistrate's authority. With a final venomous look at Zachary and Grusha, he turned and stalked away. The others followed, muttering among themselves. When they were gone, Olivia turned to Zachary. You have made some powerful enemies, Pemberton. I know, thank you for intervening. I am not sure how it would have ended if you had not arrived. Badly, I suspect. Olivia studied Grusha with interest. So you are the orc woman everyone has been talking about. Grusha, is it? Grusha nodded, clearly uncertain how to respond. Yes, my lady. Just Olivia will do fine. I am curious. What are your intentions here? Are you planning to stay with Pemberton if he will have me? Grusha said, glancing at Zachary. I know it is unusual. Unusual is one word for it, Olivia agreed. But I have seen enough of the world to know that love does not always follow the paths we expect. And I would rather see two people find happiness together, regardless of their origins, than watch them torn apart by senseless hatred. She paused, then added, However, you should know that not everyone will share my view. You will face opposition, perhaps violence. Are you prepared for that? Zachary and Grusha exchanged a look, then both nodded. We are, Zachary said. We have already decided that we are stronger together than apart. Good. Olivia mounted her horse. I will do what I can to keep the peace, but I advise you both to be careful. And Pemberton, you might want to consider getting some help. If you are determined to make a stand, you should not do it alone. After Olivia left, Zachary and Grusha stood in silence, processing what had happened. The reality of their situation had become starkly clear. They could not simply live in peaceful isolation. The world would not allow it. She was right, Grusha said quietly. We need allies. We cannot fight everyone alone. But who would ally with us? Zachary asked. I have lived as a hermit for 3 years. I do not have many friends left. Grusha thought for a moment. There may be others like me. Orcs who have left their clans who do not fit in either world, and there must be humans who do not share Cooper's hatred. We need to find them. It was a daunting prospect, but also a necessary one. Over the following weeks, they began to reach out cautiously. Grusha made contact with two other outcast orcs she had heard rumors about, a brother and sister who had been living in the wilderness. They were wary at first, but when they saw Zachary and Grusha together, saw the genuine care between them, they agreed to help if trouble came again. On the human side, progress was slower. Most people wanted nothing to do with anyone who associated with orcs. But they found a few sympathizers. A young widow who had lost her husband to the endless cycle of violence and wanted to see it end. An old veteran who had fought orcs and humans alike and was tired of war. A family of farmers who valued decency over prejudice. It was not many, but it was a start. And as summer turned to autumn, Zachary and Grusha built something that felt almost like a community. A small group of people willing to look beyond old hatreds and see each other as individuals. Through it all, their relationship deepened. They learned each other's rhythms and habits, the small intimacies that come with sharing a life. Grusha taught Zachary some of the songs of her people, haunting melodies that spoke of mountains and battles and ancient sorrows. He taught her to read and write in the common tongue, something she had never had the opportunity to learn in her clan. They worked together, ate together, slept in the same bed, and took comfort in each other's warmth. Making love was a revelation for both of them, a physical expression of the emotional bond they had forged. Grusha was strong but gentle, passionate but attentive, and Zachary rediscovered desires he thought had died with Sarah. There was no guilt in it, no sense of betrayal. Sarah would have wanted him to be happy, to live fully, and he honored her memory by embracing the love he had found with Grusha. On a crisp autumn evening, as they sat watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Zachary made a decision. He turned to Grusha and took her hand, his heart pounding with a mixture of nervousness and certainty. "Grusha," he said, "I have been thinking about something." She looked at him with those amber eyes he had come to love so deeply. "What is it? When Sarah died, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never love again, never want to share my days and nights with anyone, but you changed that. You came into my life when I had given up on everything, and you reminded me what it means to truly live." He squeezed her hand. "I know we come from different worlds. I know there are people who will never accept us, but I do not care about any of that. I care about you, about us, about the life we are building together." Grusha's expression softened, and he saw tears gathering in her eyes. "Zachary, let me finish," he said gently. "I want to make this official. I want to marry you, Grusha. I want to stand before whatever gods or witnesses will have us and declare that you are my wife, my partner, my love. I want everyone to know that we belong to each other, now and always." The tears spilled over, running down her green cheeks. "You want to marry me? Truly, truly. More than I have ever wanted anything." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring, simple silver, that he had forged himself in secret over the past weeks. "I am not asking for a fancy ceremony or a big celebration. I just want you to be my wife. Will you marry me?" Grusha let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and threw her arms around him. "Yes, yes, of course I will marry you." They held each other as the sun sank below the horizon, two unlikely souls who had found each other against all odds. When they finally pulled apart, Zachary slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, catching the last light of day. "How do we do this?" Grusha asked, wiping her eyes. "No priest will marry us. Then we will marry ourselves," Zachary said. "We will make our own ceremony, speak our own vows. We do not need anyone's permission to love each other." They chose a date a week away, giving themselves time to prepare. They invited their small group of allies, wanting witnesses to their union even if the world at large would not recognize it. Grusha wore a simple dress that Zachary had bartered for from the friendly widow, deep blue that brought out the richness of her skin. Zachary wore his best clothes, cleaned and mended for the occasion. They held the ceremony at sunset on Zachary's land, under the open sky with the autumn wind blowing soft and cool around them. The assembled guests formed a small circle, and Zachary and Grusha stood in the center, hands clasped, eyes locked on each other. Zachary spoke first, his voice steady despite the emotion churning in his chest. "Grusha, when you knocked on my door that stormy night, I was a man who had given up on life. I existed, but I did not live. You changed that. You brought light back into my world, reminded me that there is still beauty and joy to be found, still reasons to wake up each morning with hope in my heart. You are strong and brave and kind, and I am humbled that you would choose to spend your life with me. I promise to love you with everything I am, to stand beside you against whatever challenges we face, to honor you and cherish you for all my days." Grusha's voice trembled as she replied, but her words rang clear. "Zachary, you were the first human who saw me as a person, not a monster. You gave me shelter when I had nowhere to go, and you gave me something far more precious, a home. You have shown me that love is not bound by the color of our skin or the shape of our bodies, that it is something deeper and truer than old hatreds and prejudices. You have given me hope for a future I never dared to dream of. I promise to love you with all my heart, to be your partner and your friend, to stand with you through joy and sorrow, from this day forward." They had no rings to exchange beyond the one Zachary had already given, but they had prepared tokens. Zachary gave Grusha a knife he had forged, the blade etched with intricate patterns, a symbol of his craft and his protection. Grusha gave Zachary a small carving she had made, a figure of two people standing together, their hands intertwined. "By the power of our own free will and the witness of these friends," Zachary said, the words they had agreed upon together, "I claim you as my wife." "And I claim you as my husband," Grusha responded. They kissed then, a long, sweet kiss that sealed their vows, and their small audience cheered and clapped. It was not a grand wedding, not the kind of ceremony either of their peoples would recognize, but it was theirs, and it was real, and it was perfect. They celebrated with a simple feast, food prepared by their friends and shared in good fellowship. The old veteran told ribald stories that made everyone laugh, and the young widow sang songs in a clear, beautiful voice. The two orc outcasts, Mara and her brother Grath, performed a traditional dance from their homeland, powerful and graceful. It was a celebration of community as much as of marriage, a declaration that here in this small corner of the world, things could be different. As the night grew late and their guests departed, Zachary and Grusha found themselves alone once more, husband and wife in every way that mattered. They lay together in their bed, wrapped in each other's arms, and spoke quietly of their dreams for the future. "I want to build something here," Grusha said. "Not just a home for us, but a place where others like us can come. Outcasts, people who do not fit in either world. We could offer them sanctuary, help them build new lives." Zachary considered the idea, then nodded slowly. "It would be dangerous. We would be painting an even bigger target on our backs. I know. But I think it would be worth it. We have found happiness together. Should we not help others find the same?" "You are right," Zachary said, kissing her forehead. "We will build that sanctuary. We will show the world that there is another way, that humans and orcs can live in peace, even find love." Winter came early that year, blanketing the land in snow and ice. Zachary and Grusha spent the long, cold months preparing for the spring, when they would begin to expand their home and put out word that they welcomed those who had nowhere else to go. They worked on plans, discussed how they would support more people, and dreamed of the community they would build. The first to arrive was a young orc man named Thrak, barely more than a boy, who had fled his clan after refusing to participate in a raid. He was thin and frightened, and he looked at Zachary with deep suspicion. But Grusha welcomed him warmly, and Zachary offered him food and shelter without question. Within a week, Thrak had relaxed enough to smile, and he proved to be a hard worker with a talent for woodworking. Others followed slowly but steadily. A half-orc woman named Lyra, product of a forbidden union like the one Zachary and Grusha had formed, who had been rejected by both her human mother's people and her orc father's clan. An old human man named Silas, who had lost his family to orc raiders, but had grown tired of hatred and wanted to spend his final years working for peace instead of vengeance. A pair of young humans, lovers who had befriended an orc and been cast out of their village for it. By the time spring arrived, Zachary's small cottage had grown into a cluster of buildings, a hamlet in miniature. They built communal spaces where everyone could gather, workshops where they could practice their various crafts, gardens that they tended together. It was hard work, and there were challenges and disagreements, but they were building something real and meaningful. Not everyone approved. Thomas Cooper and his supporters made their displeasure known through vandalism and threats. Twice, riders came in the night and set fire to outlying buildings. But each time, the community came together to rebuild, and they established watches to guard against further attacks. The two orc brothers, Grath and his sister Mara, proved formidable defenders, and their presence alone was enough to deter most trouble. Olivia Sterling continued to support them, using her influence to shield the growing community from legal harassment. She even brought her father, the magistrate, to visit one spring day. The old man was skeptical at first, but after spending an afternoon talking with the residents and seeing how they lived together in peace, he left with a thoughtful expression. "You are doing something unprecedented here," he told Zachary before departing. "I am not sure if it can last, but I admire the attempt. You have my protection for whatever it is worth." That protection proved valuable when a delegation from a nearby orc clan arrived in the summer. They were led by a fierce warrior named Grok, who demanded to speak with the orc traders who had abandoned their people. Zachary braced for violence, but Grusha stepped forward to meet them with her head held high. "I am no traitor," she said clearly. "I chose a different path, one that does not lead to endless war and suffering. If that makes me a traitor in your eyes, so be it." Grok glared at her. "You have mated with a human. You have turned your back on everything our ancestors fought for." "Our ancestors fought for survival," Grusha countered. "They fought because they had no choice, but we have a choice now. We can continue the cycle of violence or we can try to build something better. I have chosen the latter." "And what has it gotten you?" "This pathetic collection of outcasts and weaklings." "It has gotten me a family," Grusha said simply. "People who care for each other not because they share blood or species, but because they choose to. It has gotten me a husband who loves me, a home that I helped build, and a purpose beyond mere survival." "What have you gotten from your endless battles, Grok? More scars, more dead friends. When does it end?" The orc warrior had no answer for that. He looked around at the community, at the mixed group of humans and orcs working side by side, and something flickered in his eyes that might have been doubt or longing. Finally, he grunted and turned to leave. "You will fail," he called back. "This dream of yours will shatter, and then you will understand that our way is the only way." "Perhaps," Grusha said. "Or perhaps we will prove you wrong." After the delegation left, Zachary found Grusha standing alone, her shoulders tight with tension. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned back into his embrace. "That was brave," he said quietly. "That was terrifying," she corrected. "I thought they would attack, but they did not. You gave them something to think about, at least." He turned her around to face him. "You were magnificent," she smiled, some of the tension leaving her face. "I had to be. I'm not just speaking for myself anymore. I am speaking for everyone here, for this community we have built, for our future." "Our future," Zachary repeated and placed his hand gently on her stomach. Grusha's eyes widened. "You know," I suspected, "you have been sick in the mornings and tired in the evenings, and I have seen the way you touch your belly when you think no one is watching." He searched her face anxiously. "Are you happy about it?" Tears filled her eyes, but she was smiling. "I am terrified and overjoyed in equal measure. A child, Zachary, our child, half human, half orc. What kind of world will they grow up in?" "A better one than we inherited, if we have anything to say about it," Zachary replied firmly. He kissed her tenderly. "We will protect them, teach them, love them, and they will grow up here, surrounded by people who have already proven that the old divisions do not have to define us." The news of Grusha's pregnancy spread through the community, sparking both celebration and concern. Some worried about the child's future, the challenges they would face as a half-breed in a world that did not tolerate such unions. But others saw it as a symbol of hope, proof that their dream of a blended community could literally bear fruit. As summer turned to autumn and Grusha's belly swelled with new life, Zachary found himself reflecting on how much had changed in less than 2 years. He had gone from a man waiting to die to a man building a future, from a hermit who wanted nothing to do with the world to a leader of a small but growing community. And it had all started with a simple decision to open his door to someone in need. The birth came on a cold winter night, snow falling soft and thick outside. Grusha labored for hours while Zachary paced anxiously, helpless to do anything but hold her hand and whisper encouragement. The community's healer, an older human woman named Martha who had joined them in the fall, tended to Grusha with practiced skill. Finally, as dawn light began to creep through the windows, a baby's cry filled the room. Martha wrapped the infant in a soft blanket and placed them in Grusha's arms. Zachary leaned over to see, his heart in his throat. The baby was perfect. They had Grusha's green skin, though lighter in tone, and Zachary's dark hair. Their ears were slightly pointed, their features a beautiful blend of both parents. Zachary felt tears streaming down his face as he looked at his child, this impossible miracle. "A daughter," Martha announced with a smile. "Congratulations." Zachary and Grusha looked at each other, exhausted and elated and overwhelmed. "What should we name her?" Grusha asked. They had discussed names but had not settled on one, both wanting to see the baby before making a final decision. Now, looking at their daughter's tiny face, Zachary knew exactly what felt right. "Hope," he said. "Her name should be Hope." Grusha smiled through her tears. "Hope, yes. That is perfect." Little Hope became the heart of the community. Everyone doted on her, this living symbol of what they were all working toward. As she grew, it became clear that she had inherited the best qualities of both her parents. Grusha's strength and resilience, Zachary's kindness and curiosity. She was a bright, happy child who knew no division between human and orc, who played with children of both species without seeing any difference. The community continued to grow steadily. More outcasts and refugees arrived, drawn by word of mouth and the hope of a place where they could live without persecution. They expanded their buildings, their gardens, their workshops. They established trade with a few open-minded merchants from distant towns, selling their crafts and buying supplies they could not produce themselves. There were still challenges, still moments of darkness. Thomas Cooper never gave up his campaign of harassment, though his influence waned as more people saw that the mixed community was not the disaster he had predicted. There were occasional attacks from both human raiders and orc war parties, though these grew less frequent as the years passed, and it became clear that the community would defend itself fiercely. On Hope's 5th birthday, Zachary and Grusha stood watching their daughter play with a group of other children, a mix of humans, orcs, and half-breeds like herself. They chased each other through the settlement's central square, their laughter ringing out clear and pure. "Look at them," Grusha said softly. "They do not see enemies, they just see friends." Zachary put his arm around his wife's shoulders. "That is what we have built here, a place where the next generation can grow up differently, better than we did. You think it will spread? Do you think other communities like ours will form? I hope so. But even if they do not, we have proven it is possible. We have shown that love is stronger than hatred, that people can choose to be better than their prejudices." He looked at Grusha, seeing the lines that time had etched around her eyes, the silver beginning to thread through her dark hair, and he loved her more than he had on the day they married. "You knocked on my door with nowhere to go, and you gave me everything. You gave me a reason to live, a purpose, a family. You gave me hope." Grusha leaned her head on his shoulder. "And you gave me the same. You were the first person to see me, truly see me, as more than just an orc. You looked past everything I had been taught to believe about myself, and showed me I could be someone worthy of love and respect." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their daughter and the community they had built. It was not perfect, and it never would be. There would always be challenges, always be people who wanted to tear down what they had created. But they had proven that it could be done, that humans and orcs could live together, love together, build a future together. As the sun set on Hope's birthday celebration, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Zachary thought back to that rainy night 7 years ago when a desperate orc woman had knocked on his door. He had been standing at the edge of an abyss, ready to let himself fall into it. Instead, he had made the choice to open the door to let someone in, to take a chance on connection despite all the reasons not to. It had been the best decision of his life. That night, after Hope was tucked into bed and the community had settled into quiet, Zachary and Grusha sat by their fire as they had done countless times over the years. The cottage had grown since those early days, expanded to accommodate their growing family and the occasional guest, but this room remained the heart of their home. "You ever regret it?" Grusha asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "Choosing this path? You could have sent me away that first night, gone back to your solitary existence." Zachary turned to look at her, this woman who had become the center of his world. "Not for a single moment. Every day with you has been a gift, Grusha. Every challenge we have faced has been worth it to build this life together. Even when Thomas Cooper burned down the workshop, even when that orc war party nearly killed Grath, even through all the hardship and fear, even then." He took her hand, running his thumb over her knuckles in a familiar gesture. "Because we faced all of it together, and we did not just survive, we thrived. Look around you. Look at what we have built. This is our legacy, our answer to a world that said what we were doing was impossible." Grusha smiled, that warm expression that still made his heart skip a beat after all these years. "I love you, Zachary Pemberton. I have loved you since the moment you wrapped my wounded arm instead of turning me away. I will love you until the day I die." "And I love you, Grusha Pemberton," he replied, using the name she had taken when they married. "You saved my life in ways you will never fully understand. You made me whole again." They sat together as the fire burned low, two souls who had found each other against impossible odds. Outside, the community they had built slept peacefully, a testament to the power of compassion over hatred, of love over fear. And in the room down the hall, their daughter dreamed of a world where everyone could live together in peace. It was not the ending Zachary had envisioned for himself when he had become a widower all those years ago. It was better, richer, fuller than anything he could have imagined. He had opened his door to a stranger in need, and in doing so, he had opened his heart to a future he never thought possible. As he and Grusha eventually made their way to bed, Zachary felt a deep sense of contentment. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove that their way of life could work. But tonight, he would simply be grateful for the warmth of his wife beside him, the sound of his daughter's soft breathing down the hall, and the knowledge that he had found his place in the world once more. The widower had indeed had no reason to open his door again, until the orc woman knocked with nowhere to go. But in opening that door, he had discovered that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected places, and that love knows no boundaries when two people are brave enough to reach across the divide. Their story would be told in the years to come, a legend of hope and courage that inspired others to question the old hatreds and prejudices. But for Zachary and Grusha, it was simply their life, the beautiful, complicated, wonderful reality they had built together from the ashes of loss and the courage of connection. And as sleep finally claimed them both, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the quilts Grusha had sewn and Zachary had embroidered with careful stitches, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. Always together,